That's right, Godzilla broke out of the Hecatoncheires, killed the Furies, put the sun back in the sky, kicked a Titan's ass, and beat the Queen of the Underworld. So, what do you got for me this time? God of War. Now, the story of God of War doesn't take any moment to hold itself back and say, hey, guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna make the main character commit suicide. Dark much. Anyways, we see Kratos committing suicide, but then it flashes back to a few weeks later when we take out the Hydra. Once he beats the Hydra, he actually is tasked by the gods, specifically Athena, to kill Ares, the god of war, who is now besieging her city. But in order to do this, he needs to travel across the vast deserts onto the back of Kronos and reach Pandora's tower to reach the legendary Pandora's box. Only then will he have the unfathomable power to kill a god. Now, to give a small little history with this title, this was actually the second God of War game that I actually played. The first one was actually God of War 2, because that was the first one that I was able or allowed to play at the time, and I went back and played the first one after I had played the second one. So this one allowed me to see like where the series had come from, and see where the whole origin of it came from. And this is the one that actually David Jaffe, the creator of the series, directed before it was passed on to Chloe Balrog and then switched directors from here on afterwards. And I gotta say, this is a damn solid foundation for one of the best action franchises I've seen of the last 2 generations. The gameplay in God of War, as you would expect by this point, is where everything had started. You have the Blades of Chaos, you have a number of magical spells, each one of them are really fun to use, such as Zeus's Fury, Poseidon's Rage, all these different kinds of spells, and even the Souls of Hades itself. You can basically summon them up with their Blades of Chaos and basically just watch your enemies just get bounced around like a freaking rubber ball just going off the walls and crap. And it was so cool just to see, like, I feel like such a total badass. Also, the Blade of Artemis is super overpowered, but it's so much fun. You basically have a giant freaking sword and you just swipe it all over the place, and by the time you power it up, you can pretty much take almost any enemy on in a few hits. And it feels super cathartic by the time you do it. And that's probably the best way I can describe this whole entire series, in particular this first one, is that it feels cathartic. But it's not just an all-action thrill ride. There's actually moments of puzzle solving to help break up those action segments and make you relish them a little bit more. Some of these puzzles, the first time I tried them, were a little bit of a head scratcher, but they weren't anything that I knew I couldn't overcome. Moving on from the gameplay back to the story a little bit, we also get a sense of Kratos as a character. This is a moment where we were first introduced to Kratos as this sympathetic hero who had killed his own family, who was tricked by the gods to kill his own family, as cursed as the ghost of Sparta, trying to redeem himself for his past deeds, and as the servant Ares. This is his final task in order to redeem himself and forgiven of his sins and the nightmares that haunt his past. In order to do this, he has to do something that no one has ever done, and that's to kill a god. Finding Pandora's box alone is a tall order, let alone kill a god. But one of the coolest things about God of War 1 is that while you are searching throughout this entire story and going through Pandora's tower, you actually figure out the history of Pandora's tower, such as the architect Panthoverdes III, and you figure out, like, how did he construct this tower, what was his mindset of how he was super loyal to the gods. And then slowly over time, as you escalate up the tower and search throughout its caverns, you find out that maybe he's losing his mind a little bit of figuring out how much it's sacrificed, just figuring out how large and how much it took a toll on both his life, his family, and his mental state. Just seeing that, it was like finding a little story within a story. The music is also really well done. The music has that old school epic vibe to it while still having its own distinct flavor to it. It makes it feel like this is uniquely God of War. As soon as you ever hear a God of War's music, you'll be just itching for any moment to clip the wings off a harpy or behead a Gorgon, and each time it feels satisfying. And while everything I've mentioned is very positive and memorable so far, there is unfortunately one negative thing regarding this game. That negative being, of course, is its gameplay near the end of the story. Now, I know some might ask the question, but Perry, you just said that all the gameplay is very good and it has a lot of variety, so it never gets dull. That is correct. However, that level of variety and creativity is not consistent throughout the entire game, namely the last third of the game. I can't exactly explain... You know what? Screw it. I'm going to have to explain this one just so I can justify my point. Throughout the entire game, you come across these vast chambers and different puzzle rooms, and everything feels unique, everything feels distinct, and you can remember each and every segment of the gameplay, from the outside of Pandora's Temple to the Chambers of Poseidon, the Challenge of Hades room. But when you get near the end of the game and you find yourself actually in Hades again, but the problem with this Hades segment is that there's literally nothing outside of just platforming and dodging blades as they twirl around on what basically look like giant meat racks. Just spinning around, and that's it. All you have to do is just kill enemies on these platforms, just jump, crawl over, walk over, jump, continue, climb up a little bit, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Even while it is memorable in that sense, there's not that level of creativity and consistent level of quality, and it just makes you wonder, it's like, did they just think this up in like 15 minutes or something like that? It doesn't have that same level of creativity and consistent quality that the rest of the game had. Basically having the entire game be really good at the beginning, middle, and then having this one sour patch near the end, and then an ending boss fight, it just makes you wonder what the heck happened with this portion of the game that made it so much inferior to the rest of it. So with all that in mind, I'm going to have to say that God of War 1 is absolutely worth playing, but not perfect. So there you go, folks. That is my review of God of War 1. I hope you enjoyed this. Now, tell me, what is your favorite weapon from the God of War series if you played them? I fully recommend that you still try this one, even if that one Hades segment near the end is a little bit weak. It's still a lot of fun to play as, and if you were going to start the franchise in any particular order, if you weren't going to do it in chronological order, do it started with this one. It's definitely a story worth picking up, and it feels like a classic Greek tragedy. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review, and until next time, I'm Perry, the One-Armed Legend, and I will see you later.